Good morning, everybody, and happy Labor Day to my fellow Americans and our Canadian neighbors. I was gonna try to make this quick so we could all get back to making fat jokes about Chris Christie, but, it's not every day that a fella and his lovely wife get their picture in the newspaper for the movie they made. Check it out. That is the story that the Herald-Mail published on Thursday about the Darkness and Tom Markos, the film I co-wrote and co-starred in that showed Friday night at the Horrifying Film Festival in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I give the Herald-Mail a lot of shit, which it totally deserves, but Crystal Shelley, the reporter who came out and interviewed our director Matt Mattson and my co-writer Rob Talbert and myself for this story, was totally on the ball. She wrote an awesome story about us. She produced a video piece about us and our movie that you can see on the Herald-Mail's website, and it also aired on local television. It was just incredibly awesome. We owe her and her paper a big thank you for that. Now, enough making nice. The following calls are taken from editions of Mail Call printed in the Herald-Mail from August 20 to August 30, 2012, which can be read online in their entirety at www.herald-mail.com. First up, from right here in Sharpsburg. If you're satisfied with the decline of America, and if you're satisfied with the moral decay in America, you'll vote for President Obama this election because America is at the lowest point that it's ever been. The lowest point that it's ever been. Yeah, I reckon that's true. I think most Americans would agree that the darkest, most depressing, most discouraging day of the last 4 years was way, way worse than any given day during the American Civil War, or in the aftermath of the Pearl Harbor attacks, or during the Great Depression, or during the height of the Cold War, or in the days following the 9/11 attacks. Yep. 4 years of President Obama. Way worse than any of that. Wait a minute. He did actually say moral decay, though, didn't he? Which is code for we're too nice to gay people. Yeah, I get it now. I'd like to ask everyone a question. Maybe we can get some good answers here in Mail Call. Every time around elections, we're always hearing quotes from these so-called political experts. Now, my question is this. If these people are experts in the field of politics, why is this country in the shape it's in? Don't you think these people, if they're experts, these so-called experts in politics, could help our politicians do their job? A political expert. Someone tell me exactly what that consists of. Hagerstown. I'll tell you exactly what an expert consists of, and I know that this is true because my pap told me a long, long time ago. Not my pap who died just recently, who I mentioned in that video I made about the anti-gay marriage petition. The other pap, the one that I loved. He told me that X means from an unknown origin, and spurt is what happens out of your spigot when you have air in your pipes. Now, it turns out that Pap was actually wrong about X in that explanation. X, the prefix, means from or out of, and our English word expert comes from the Latin expertus, which is a participle of experior, which literally means from practice or from experience. Although I think that second one sounds a little odd because the English word experience comes from that same Latin root as expert. So it's almost like you're using a word to define itself, which is a little odd. But I can forgive Pap for being wrong about that because of his general badassery, as evidenced by his use of cool words like spigot. What an awesome word. This was not an etymology question, was it? Has a Democrat ever told a Republican, or vice versa, that they had a good idea and let's work on this together? I doubt it, because then the idea would benefit the American people, and it won't happen because they are more worried about which party would get credit for it. I'm a Democrat, but I listen to both sides before I vote. I'm retired and on Medicare and Medicaid, but I believe this Paul fellow, Republican vice president candidate, has some pretty good ideas on them. Folks, we need to start somewhere. Hagerstown. Can't go with you on that last part. I personally find most of Paul Ryan's ideas to be the opposite of good. What's the word for that? Anyway, as far as Democrats telling Republicans that they have good ideas and inviting them to collaborate on something that would benefit all of the American people, yeah, actually, that does happen. Bill Clinton used to do it, and Barack Obama did it just a few years ago when he began pushing for a modest little piece of legislation you might remember hearing about called health care reform, some of the key elements of which were Republican ideas before they were championed by the Democrat whose presidency those same Republicans have spent the last 4 years trying to sabotage, that is. Would you please advise who I need to contact about resolving the Social Security shortage? It's fairly simple. Reduce welfare. A coworker saw a statement on Facebook the other day that somewhat expresses our sentiments. I go to work every day because millions on welfare depend on me. It's rather difficult to take when you're standing in a grocery line trying to make your money count and someone on welfare is in front of you with food such as shrimp and steak. Clear Spring. I'm not saying welfare fraud doesn't ever happen. I'm not saying that there aren't people receiving welfare checks who are exploiting government assistance so they won't have to actually work. But you do understand how petty and horrible it is, generally speaking, to be envious of people on welfare, right? I'm responding to the person who called that had to swerve to miss a cat and hit the curb. You're more dangerous than the cat running loose. What if a child was standing on that curb you hit? I love animals as much as everybody, but hit your brakes. If you have to swerve, you just have to hit the cat. I'm sorry. But you don't lose control of your car to miss the cat and go bouncing up on curbs and whoever happens to be standing there. Hagerstown. I'd hit the child and sleep like a baby that night. A dead baby. I live in the South End near the railroad. I've complained before about the noise all night long. Why doesn't the railroad buy my house and then I can move someplace where you can get a decent night's sleep? I cannot believe people in the city are that narrow-minded to not have a sound ordinance to stop this from happening. Hagerstown. You know, I've encountered people with some pretty goddamn delusional senses of entitlement before, but why doesn't the railroad buy my house? I mean, you do realize that you're not the only person who lives near the railroad. Do you also realize that the railroad has been in Hagerstown for 130 years? It didn't move into your neighborhood. You moved into its neighborhood. And somehow it's on the railroad to pay you to move somewhere else? If you're not a Republican, you should be. If they find out about you, they'll probably want to run you for office. Can anybody tell us why the Herald-Mail will not print in mail call anything concerning the Washington County Commissioners and their finances and their county debt? Morgansville. Because mail call is an anonymous forum for big mouths and misinformed malcontents, and as such is probably not the best source for a newspaper to use to disclose financial information about elected officials? Just a guess. Well, here it is again, another park going to let those four-legged dogs in there. They already have it out at Marty Snook Park, a beautiful park that they're trying to ruin. Now they're going to let it happen in Haggar Park. Why don't they let us take and enjoy our parks without having dogs and drinkers and... We enjoy our parks. So there they go again. When are they going to stop it? Washington County. Yes, because the rights of people who don't like dogs and alcohol come before the rights of those who do. Right? Look, I don't like motorcycles, all right? I hate motorcycles, but I don't expect anybody to outlaw them just because they bother me. Suck it up and quit your bitching. Or, you know what? Fuck it. Keep bitching if that's what does it for you, but stop expecting other people to give a shit. And finally, from Clear Spring on a subject we touched on last time, in reference to the article on August 20 that not everybody can come to church in acceptable attire, yeah, everybody can. I bought a nice, clean sports jacket for the cost of a six-pack. A clean, good dress shirt and tie for a very, very cheap six-pack. Your choice. A six-pack or being more presentable. The cost of a black t-shirt with Jack Daniels printed on the back costs more. Get with it, brother. Thanks, but I'll take the six-pack. Yingling, if you please. I was drinking Stella for a while, but I've been off it ever since Soretta Yuki told me that they call that wife-beater in the UK. And anyway, what was I doing drinking Belgian beer? I'm an American. And if Yangling is good enough for the president of these United States, then God damn it, it's good enough for me. Join me, churchgoers of America, nay, the world. We will not let national boundaries stop us. Join me. Spend not your money on inexpensive, thinly woven sport coats. Spend it on beer. Waste not your Sunday morning sitting on a hard wooden pew listening to sermons delivered from an ancient book of mythology. Waste it getting wasted. And should a hangover result, be grateful, because hangovers are cured by bacon sandwiches. When's the last time church gave you an excuse to eat a motherfucking bacon sandwich? What was that? That's what I thought. Fuck church. Get drunk. Thanks for watching.